Namaskar, welcome to Honest Astrologer, and today I'm going to talk about Mars. As I promised, next video is going to be on Mars, next series is going to be on Mars. And the more I research this planet, the more I fall in love with it. We'll come to know why. So let's start. Out of all 9 planets, Mars was given the name Mangal, the auspicious. Why? Let's find out. So, as I've said many times, 90% of the people who come to me come in a Shani Rahu or a Ketu period. And next to these bad boys of astrology, Shani Rahu and Ketu, Mars is the one which is the most maligned and most feared, especially when it comes to marriages. However, the kind of bad press he gets is mostly undeserved. In Manglik, Naam Bade Darshan Chote. Honestly, I was afraid of this planet for a very long time. However, after some research, I realized this is not the planet one should be afraid of. In fact, one should embrace, accept, and even welcome this planet, particularly the males, the menfolk. Mars is too innocent when compared to the menace of Rahu or the cold, selfish shrewdness of Shani. He comes across as a pretty chilled out guy. And when compared with an angry Ketu, remember, Ketu in a good mood is a Jain Muni, but when Ketu is angry, he's a Naga sadhu. No fighter in the world can scare one as much as a holy warrior, and holy warriors make the most fearsome opponents. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to Mars. In comparison to an angry Ketu, Mars is a very innocent warrior. Okay. The closest archetype of Mars is fighter. I wanted to put soldier, but Mars as such does not have the discipline required for becoming a soldier. For that, he requires assistance from Shani or Sun. Now, Mars is neither a goon. For becoming a goon, he needs the menace of Rahu. Mars is an innocent fighter. All he knows is to fight. And he does so innocently. At the command of his king's son, Mars is willing to kill or get killed. So Mars is the commander-in-chief, the henchman of Sun. Mars is the sword arm of Sun, the soldier to his king. So while Mars people can show a lot of aggression, they are usually surprisingly innocent. They lack the shrewdness of Shani, the malice and menace of Rahu, or the blinding dogma of Ketu, and even the egomania of Sun. So Mars, while it's an aggressive planet, it is not necessarily a malefic sort of. In reality, Mars is not all that dangerous as long as the above mentioned planets do not mess with his head and manipulate him. Mars is quite innocent and sort of lovable. Now, there are myths and legends around Mars, and at the risk of repeating myself, I would again say that one must understand mythology in order to understand astrology. So, Mars or Mangal has several stories in astrology. We will start with the Western part of it. So, Mars has several stories in Western astrology. The Greek Aries and the Roman Mars are two sides of the same coin. Okay. So, the Greek Aries, Ares. So, I believe he had something to do with the sign Aries. Yeah. And Aries was a clumsy beast, ever angry and ever ready to fight. Almost always very childishly innocent. He would go from one mess to another and he went into trouble and, believe it or not, lost a lot of battles. He was humiliated and even mocked by his enemies. Now, not a suitable image for the god of war, but it drives the point of innocence of Mars across. Whereas Aries was a mess, Roman Mars was more of a dignified soldier. It shows the refined personality of the planet. Then there was this legend of Sinfred. I don't know how the pronunciation is, so I'm saying it like that. So Sinfred was invincible in a direct battle, but he would be helpless in an attack from the behind. Now, this is a very Mars quality. Mars people will get into your face and fight it out and slug it out, but they can only be killed behind the back. They are almost invincible in a straight battle. Then there was another archetype which is associated with Mars, which is Hercules. So, someone who takes on a Herculean task is using unlimited courage and his energy and would ultimately win. Now, there was the darker, uglier representation of Mars as Berserker. I don't know, again, this is a very Scandinavian name, so I'm just calling it Berserker. So, Berserkers were the brute fighter, angry and inebriated, drunk in the wine of war, and invincible in battle. Now, this represents the crude side of Mars. These were the guys who would go hunting, kill an animal, eat it, that kind of stuff. These archetypes together bring the various faces of Mars to us. He can be a clumsy brawler, a go getter, a dignified soldier, and a brute thug drunken on bloodlust. So these are various aspects of Mars. Most of them are heroic, one or two are clumsy or cruel. Now coming to Indian mythology. Indian mythology calls Mars as Mangal, the auspicious. So, as usual, Indian mythology does a better job of explaining things and gives us a hint that Mars is not to be feared or rejected, but in fact, it is to be embraced and welcomed. We call him Mangal. Mangal means auspicious. Now, isn't it strange that the planet of war and conflict is called Mangal? Mangal Bhavana Mangalahari, a Manglik Karya. Anything which is auspicious and good is called Mangal. Why? Let's find out. So the legend of Mars we'll start with. There are several legends associated with the birth of Mars. All refers to Mars as son of Shiva, the destroyer. Let's go one by one. First legend about the birth of Mars, which is he was born out of Shiva's sweat. So according to some scriptures, Shiva was in meditation and drops of his sweat fell on the earth and Mars was born. In my view, this was the least likely one, though Mars is related to sweat and hard work. But if there is one activity that Mars cannot do, it is meditation. Not a Mars activity, more of a Ketu or a Jupiter, at times a Shani thing. Another story tells about Shiva's sweat falling on Earth during his destructive dance called Tandav. Now, this is closer to the system of Mars because Mars has an element of hustle, aggression, and destruction to him. Then there is the legend of Lord Kartikeya, the god of war. So most of people would know that Kartikeya is brother of Lord Ganesh, son of Lord Shiva, and he is considered the god of war. So the legend has it that the demon Tarkasur was tormenting the universe and Lord Kartikeya was born from the seed of Shiva in order to kill him. And after a very fierce battle, Kartikeya managed to kill Tarkasur and hence was appointed the commander-in-chief of Deva forces. So this seems like more of a Mars story. But the one which is closest to my heart and which absolutely ties into the legend of Mars is the Veerbhadra story. According to this legend, Veerbhadra was born out of Shiva's rage and is the avenger of Dharma. In my view, this is the most suitable story as this brings out the rage, invisibility, destructive ability, and most of all, requirement and importance of Mars. Now, according to this story, Shiva was married to Sati, the daughter of King Daksha. The rich King Daksha considered the mendicant Shiva unworthy of his daughter and his status. So he would often take all opportunities of insulting Shiva. Now, Lord Shiva, being Bholenath, the sweet, gullible master, forgave Daksh so many times, ignored his repeated offenses. However, things came to a boiling point when Daksh arranged a yagna, inviting all the important beings in the universe, but he did not extend an invitation to Shiva, the supreme being. Now, this is something which led to a lot of chaos later. While Shiva wasn't bothered, his wife Sati took offense to this and stormed uninvited to the yajna of Daksha and objected to the insult against her husband. Now, Sati was mocked and humiliated to this extent that she became so angry that she jumped into the yajna fire, killing herself. When Shiva got this news, he was outraged and blinded with fury. He took one of his jata, the braids of his hair, and smashed it into the earth, giving birth to a fearsome warrior who was called Veerbhadra. Shiva ordered Veerbhadra to lead an army of Ganas and ruin Daksha's yajna. Veerbhadra and his army attacked Daksha's yajna, and despite being protected by beings like Lord Vishnu, Daksha was ultimately defeated and annihilated. Then Veerbhadra went on to defile the yajna and finally beheaded Daksha, thereby completing the vengeance of Shiva and teaching the lesson to the arrogant king. So legend has it that was the point when all the negative energies were unleashed in the world. So this story is one of the most important episodes in Indian mythology. It is marked as beginning of problems in the world. Now again coming to the question, why is it that the planet of war and conflict is called Mangal, the auspecious? There is a long, deep philosophical reason behind it. So perhaps our ancient rishis could see that in times to come, Mars would be pushed in the background, in fact, even denied, leading to an industrial scale assault on Dharma and Bharatvarsha. So India and Sanatan Dharma paid a very heavy price for ignoring and denying Mars. In pursuit of Shanti, we ignored Mangal. But we need to remember auspicious happens only when Mangal is involved. So Mars is the expression of a righteous anger of an otherwise innocent, gullible Shiva. It also shows how the good guys ultimately have to get angry in order to protect righteousness or dharma. At times, destruction of the wicked is required in order to protect the dharma. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam. So I would like to request you to remember which place in India is often referred to as Dharma Kshetra, the house of Dharma, the adobe of Dharma. It is not Kedarnath or Haridwar or even the ancient town of Kashi, which is house to some of the most important temples. Dharma Kshetra is the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Remember Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra? The place where the most ferocious war, the Mahabharata war, took place and millions were slaughtered. The place where Krishna unleashed his Mars on the unrighteous warriors, thus defending Dharma and bringing Mangal back to the world. Again, what happened in medieval India is an example of what happens to nice people who ignore their Mars. So, in my life coaching channel, I have just launched Honest Life Coach. I will be talking a lot about men embracing their Mars. So, if you are a man or if you have sons who are more than 80 years of age, it's a must watch. So, it was during my research on Mars that I decided to launch that thing, and hopefully, I'll be able to wake up Mars of a lot of people. So, anyways, coming back. If you won't embrace your Mars, someone else's Mars will kick the living daylights out of you. This happened in India, right? Legend has it. I don't know how true or false they are. Nowadays, even the history books are questioned about everything. So they say that Ashoka threw his sword and went radically behind the impractical notion of ahimsa at all cost. Now, under that influence, there was a focus on Ketu, Gyan, ahimsa, things like that. But there were too many monks and too few soldiers, and ever since then we know the consequences. While monks are needed, I love them. I worship true monks, especially Jain Munis are very close to my heart. But who else is close to my heart? The soldier standing on the border. So monks are needed and desired, but a soldier's role can never be denied. And if I dare say, in the physical realm, a soldier is far more necessary than a monk. A very bitter but a practical thing. Remember, without Mars, everything is waste, at least in the material world. Let's think about medieval India for a moment. You can't see the inner light if your monastery is set on fire. You can't gain freedom to sit under a tree to meditate if you are sold in slavery. Now, Tibet is an example when good guy took their Mars out of action, and we know what happened. So remember, people, Mars is the defender of Dharma, and without Mars, nothing can be protected, not even Dharma. Remember, we are Sanatani people. Most of our gods carry one weapon or the other. and we have often gone to battles for defending the righteousness. Shastra and Shastra have joined hands in Dharma. The biggest deities who lived in human forms were known for the wars. Ram for Ramayana war, Krishna for Mahabharata war. This truth you can still see in Sikh Gurudwaras, where you will see, swords and arrows being worshipped along with the holy scripture, Sri Guru Granth Sahib. So it shows you Shastra and Shastra. So this highlights the importance of Mars. And for the record, our Sikh brothers, they fought valiantly defending Dharma. Okay. So Mars is a very essential part of Sikh culture. They call it Sant Sipahi, philosophy of Sant Sipahi for a true Sikh. So Sipahi is the Mars part. Okay, now let's talk something different. Love, romance, marriage, and Mars. So I will address the 800-pound gorilla, the Manglik myth, okay, the elephant in the room. Now you cannot talk about Mangal without talking about Manglik, which is one of the biggest cash cows in astrology. It is the most pathetic interpretation of scriptures. Mars became not the Mangal but the malefic planet whose main job was to prevent people from getting married. So Manglik, yes. So who is a Manglik? Manglik is somebody who has Mangal in 1, 4, 8, 12, 7. Some people don't consider the 8th house Mars as Manglik. The real damage is done by 12th house Mars and 4th house Mars, particularly for men. But Manglik is not that big a deal. So, but given that 5 out of 12 houses are considered Manglik, so by that definition, 41% of all people are Manglik. Then there are some scholars who say Mars's position from the moon as well as in Mansha should be considered. So if you multiply it by 3, you get around like what? 123%. So everybody is a Manglik. That's too much of a simplification. And look, what is the poor Mars supposed to do? वो रहेगा तो 12 खाने में, what is it supposed to do? Buy a house in Greater Noida or something? Manglik has been overhyped in my view. Yes, there are difficulties, especially 4th and 12th. Like I said, they can create difficult marriages. But that is not that big a deal. The entire chart has to be analyzed as a whole, and 2 charts have to be mashed. One chart to another chart. Please do not go by Manglik nahi hai very good, Gun mil gaye very good. These things do not work. Okay, Guna Milan is the worst way to match your charts. If Guna Milan thing worked, there would be 0 divorces in India and Hindu arranged marriages. It doesn't work. Then there is this legend that if a non-Manglik marries a Manglik, he or she would die. This is so ridiculous. ऐसा नहीं होता boss. Anyways, I often joke Indian women date Mars and marry Shani. They are enthralled by the Mars types, the manly, aggressive, strong types. But then the parents and society and practicality forces them to marry somebody who's a provider, can run a family and pay bills under Shani. But Venus in the heart is typically attracted to the tough guys with heavy Mars. So let me tell a bitter truth. Female psyche is more attracted to somebody who can protect instead of somebody who can only provide. So chances are that captain of the cricket team would be more successful in the dating game vis-a-vis the president of the science club. But if you ask any Desi parent, the science club guy wins every time. So a Mars romance and a Shani marriage is what happens to most women. The solution is to empower the good guys, to empower the nice guy, to stop beta-tizing our boys, to stop beta-tizing our sons. That's the solution. Modern parenting needs to improve. What we have done is we have suppressed the mass of our sons and we have poured in a lot of Shani. Usually parents of the urban boys are busy forcing them into an obedient, docile Shani mode. Boys that get into a fight for whatever reason are reprimanded and forced to behave. Ladai mat karo. They are discouraged from playing any physical games or going out with the boys or making a group. Mostly they are forced into one coaching center after the other. Could be for government job in North India or IT job and a visa in South India. Now, on the other end, in rural India, particularly the North, we suffer from toxic masculinity, the bad patriarchy. There we have people get into fights every 5 kilometers. There are road rage, eve teasing, brute, uncouth, aggressive behavior, which is accepted, even encouraged, bringing out the bad side of Mars. Now, this creates a schizophrenia in society where Mars is repressed and corrupted. Most people would not stand up to defend themselves, while there is a small minority which would not hesitate from hurting or humiliating others. Now, what is the solution? Solution is bringing out the best of Mars in our boys. Mars is very important, especially for male natives. The young boys who are told to stay out of trouble and are manipulated by parents into being good boys often end up suppressing and frustrating their Mars. They grow up to be soft, repressed, effeminate men who are hardly ever able to assert their will and are busy people pleasing and get dominated by others around them. Those others could be parents, teachers, bosses, spouse, girlfriends, whatever. They simply just don't know how to live for themselves, and that's the majority. There is a minority which is taken to another extreme who are encouraged to become thuggish brutes. Both approaches go from one extreme to another, both are wrong. A balanced and healthy approach is required. Let's see what we can do here in order to improve our Mars, especially that of the young boys. So, being an astrologer, I have to give a remedy, right? So, here we go. Number one thing, pray to Lord Hanuman. Now, Hanumanji is the supreme soldier who is the best synthesis. That is why Hanumanji is worshipped on Tuesday and Saturday. He brings aggression and toughness along with discipline and humility. Praying to Lord Hanuman and meditating on his glories, reading about his and singing his praises would not only bring the best out of Mars and Shani, but would also improve general well-being of a person, his general health. Visiting a Gurudwara would definitely again do the trick. Then you can do Mars mantra and you can keep Mars yantra. Wearing red coral can boost a person's Mars. I'm wearing one, but you need to be very sure if it is well placed in your chart. Otherwise, it's better to stick to a yantra. A gemstone should only be worn post consultation of a good astrologer. If Mars is good, not good on your chart, stick to mantra and yantra. Another thing, very, very, very important, workout build muscle. Now, this doesn't look good coming out from a 120 plus kg man, but this is one of my biggest regrets. How I wish I would have worked less, studied less, gone to lesser number of coachings, worked lesser number of hours, and I would have dedicated some time of my life to my physical fitness. This is my biggest regret. I do not want the future generations to have this regret. So, working out and getting muscle mass is a great way to improve your mass as well as your health. I strongly suggest working out for people with a bad or afflicted Mars or a very heavy Mars. Such Mars gives them tons of energy and aggression, but for the lack of guidance, it can lead to rage and conflicts and other kind of trouble. There are scores of stories about misguided youth becoming dignified athletes if you bring some discipline to the Mars energy. Purification of Mars energy brings out the best in the native, especially the men. We must try not to suppress our Mars or that of our boys. We must guide them to become what they can become the best. Not a brute thug, but a dignified soldier, an officer and a gentleman, a defender and a protector, not an aggressor. Mangal. So with that, I complete the session and I hope you will like that. Please let me know if you want to learn more about Mars. Just write Jai Bajrangabali in the comment section and I'll continue with the series. So with this, we come to the end of this. Jai Bajrang.